Hello, and welcome to Fighting Over the VCR. My name is Matthew.
My name is Nancy.
And it's October. Hooray! Ooh. Do you like October?
Yes.
And
it's fall.
It
finally.
is fall.
Cooler months.
You know, and there's something else that happens in October, which is pretty exciting, right, Mulder? Well, number one...
Well, Mulder's a black cat. So.
Black cats. Let's start this off with a PSA. Black cats are amazing. They're just like any other cat. They're not evil. There's nothing evil about a black cat. So let's, if you see black cats in October, please take care of them. There's people that like to specifically find black cats in October and do terrible bad things to them. So do not go to a pound or, a kennel or any place like that and find a black cat and do terrible things to it. And if you hear of anyone doing this, report them to the authorities. Black cats are amazing. They are friendly and loving and talkative, as Podcat here is. I would like it if you would take care of them. So take care of the black cats this October.
I agree. And this cat is basically like a dog anyways.
Pretty much. There's another reason why October is great. That's pumpkin spice lattes. Actually, no, it's not. Pumpkin spice lattes are dumb. The whole month of October, if you watch television or go to the movies, this is prime time to get your scare on, because it is time for Halloween movies.
It's spooky season.
It is spooky season. So this episode and the next couple episodes, we're going to focus on some spooky movies that we grew up watching.
Yep.
Because
that's what we do.
That's what we do. We talk about movies that we grew up watching, and
yeah.
Let's get spooky.
I'm going to just start by saying I've more or less outgrown wanting to watch scary movies. It's not something I usually choose to do anymore. I don't watch slasher movies. I don't watch like Saw or any of the many horror movies that come out throughout the year. It's not really my jam. So this is kind of pushing me to different limits, revisiting some scary stuff this month, but
Well, and Nancy, I don't think you've ever really been into scary horror movies. Mm-mm. You're not into blood and guts and gore or anything like that. I mean, there's even certain suspenseful movies that have nothing really to do with horror, but it could just be like a murder or something like that you're not really super fond of.
Yeah, I don't race out to necessarily watch like tons of Stephen King stuff, but I definitely can list like 4 or 5 Stephen King movies I like. But no, scary movies are not my normal. I mean, the bloodiest movies I watch would normally be like gangster movies. Mm-hmm. But yeah, scary movies. This is a challenge for me, but it's a fun challenge.
Well, and I think that we're gonna get to over the next couple episodes, hopefully introduce you to some really good cinema.
Mm-hmm. There are two.
There's some good movies that are on the scary side that Nancy has just not been inclined to watch. Mm-hmm. She hasn't necessarily avoided them, but she's never, if she had to choose between scary movie and
When Harry Met Sally,
and When Harry Met Sally, she's going to put on When Harry Met Sally. So I think this is going to be fun. Yeah. I'm really excited. I myself, I wouldn't say I'm a horror movie aficionado. I don't seek them out. Mm-hmm. But I've seen quite a few. Mm-hmm. I along with you, I'm not really into what has been deemed torture porn, which is basically the thrill of watching someone get hurt in creative and extremely terrible ways. No. Or there's movies like Hostel where like people just get kidnapped and chopped up or tortured or whatnot. I'm not into that. It's I think that where I gravitate towards is kind of cheesy slasher or like almost comedic, like Evil Dead.
Mm-hmm. Kind of like campy.
Campy is fun. but I also like some suspenseful kind of horror genre.
I think we're not going to talk about it for this month, but I rewatched Donnie Darko in the last year, and I forgot how suspenseful and freaked out that movie made me.
It's kind of...
Frank the Rabbit really, really...
Well, and that takes place...
Scared me.
On Halloween. That whole scene with Frank the Rabbit takes place on Halloween.
Yeah.
So I think it would qualify, for this, but...
Not part of this
Not on our list.
Maybe next year.
So let's get to it. I think that this week is going to be... It's probably more of our roots.
Yeah, I would say definitely our roots. We're going to talk about movies that Matt and I both saw, I think, before the age of 10. I mean, really, really definitely. Early exposure. The movie Matt's talking about, we definitely saw
as children,
as young children. And the movie I am going to talk about, I saw a little older, but I was in elementary school when I saw it. I will later be talking about Nightmare on Elm Street, which was the scariest horror movie I'd seen probably throughout my childhood, and then got somewhat obsessed with all the sequels and really kind of dove into that series. But Matt's going to start us off with Poltergeist.
Yes. Okay, so Poltergeist, the horror movie that Stephen King put out other than Schindler's List.
Steven Spielberg.
Spielberg. Oh my gosh. Well,
I know.
Some people would rather it be Stephen King, but anyway.
PG. Rated PG.
Because the PG-13 rating had not been created yet.
But it should have been R.
I do not think this movie is R-rated.
Well,
I mean, it's freaky.
For as terrified as we were of it as kids...
I'll say this. It's a PG-13 movie primarily because it has the scare factor that, kids our age, under 10, probably should not have been seeing. But at the same time, it's not super bloody and no one dies.
I guess you're right.
No one dies.
Yeah. You just, yeah.
So in 1982, Steven Spielberg writes and produces this movie, depending on and he hires a director to make it named Tobe Hooper, who previously did the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which, if you've seen the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, is probably it is torture porn in a lot of ways, just from the name itself. So him doing this movie is very kind of a bizarre kind of thing for Stephen King or Steven Spielberg to take on.
Did this come out before or after E.T.?
So here's the story. Supposedly, Spielberg couldn't direct this movie because because of the contract that he had in the obligation to make E.T.
Okay.
But one of the things
he certainly had time to hire the person to do the score.
Well, here's the thing: is there's a lot of interesting controversy about this movie. Not just during the making of it, but post-production of it and everything. And one of the kinds of interesting things about this movie is if you're watching it, it feels like a Steven Spielberg movie. Mm-hmm. And even though he's not credited as the director, and if you ask him, he doesn't say he directed it, but people on set have all said that he directed a handful of this movie, maybe more than 50% of this movie. Mm-hmm. And there's room there. They can't really say no one has really sat down and nailed it down. But if he's making this at the same time as E.T., there's rumors that it's the same neighborhood.
Oh wow!
But
it's just there's no bicycles flying in this movie.
But that's all. Some of that has not been proven or disproven or whatnot. But just the fact that there's this weirdness going into making this movie is one of the things I think that makes it kind of have like a lore, you know, that people are like so into.
Oh yeah.
And we'll get into some of the other things that have happened with actors and whatnot.
Yeah.
So this movie came out in 1982, and it is basically well, let me kind of get back. So one of the fun things that I think is great about watching movies like this, especially I guess at any age, is kind of the whole like, hey, let's have a slumber party and watch a scary movie kind of thing. One of the fun things that we did to rewatch this movie is we had kind of a group watching. It was me and Nancy and our friends of the podcast, Sherry and Drew, and we got together and we said, hey, let's watch Poltergeist. It was a lot of fun. And I think that one of the things that makes it fun is you all kind of like laugh at the same parts, or you find certain things kind of spooky, or you can goof on each other if someone's getting scared, and like there's all those kinds of fun things to do. So
you can all uniformly agree that clowns are scary.
Well, yeah, we'll get to that. I just wanted to say, like, I think that's one of the fun things about watching scary movies is like kind of the whole like, hey, it's like everyone going on a roller coaster together.
Yeah. Yeah,
you know?
I'd agree.
And kind of having that same like adrenaline rush and everything like that at the same time, or everyone trying, you know, if you're with like your sweetheart and like hiding under the blanket with them kind of thing, you know. I think that is kind of the fun thing about scary movies. And
then I'm sure you get the prankster in these shared experiences that will deliberately try to scare the other people watching them together.
Yes, I have a story about that as when we get to the second movie that we're going to talk about.
Great.
But Nancy, you actually made a very great comment to describe this movie while we were having our group rewatch, and that this movie kind of is about the horrors of overbuilding in real estate.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because so where we live, there's just not enough housing. The Bay Area is overcrowded, and there's not enough places for people to live. So everywhere you turn, there are new condos going up, just everywhere, and that this movie is kind of based on a neighborhood that just kind of sprung up, but maybe what was it built on, and maybe that should have been considered before they, poured all the concrete and let all the residents come in.
So this is actually Poltergeist is, your kind of typical haunted house kind of story.
Yeah.
And I don't
haunted house and maybe like an exorcism kind of thing.
It's kind of
the thing with.
Yeah, I mean, it almost like I think so. One of my favorite new horror movies, and it might be in my top 5 now of horror movies, just because I like it so much, is The Conjuring.
Never saw it.
Oh man, that's a great scary movie.
Maybe next year.
First time we watched it, we decided to put it on at 11 o'clock at night.
Oh my God.
And that was a mistake. We were kind of freaked out.
Who's in that? Is that the one with Ethan Hawke?
No, The Conjuring.
Patrick Wilson, right?
Patrick Wilson and the whose name I can never pronounce.
From Up in the Air?
Yes. Yeah, I think that's
and the Bates Motel remake?
No, Up in the Air was that her? Yeah, I think it was her.
She's also in it.
Yeah. Anyway, haunted house story, kind of a ghost story kind of thing, because that's what poltergeists are. And basically, it's a movie. It stars Greg T. Nelson as
the dad,
Stephen Freeling, JoBeth Williams as Diane Freeling, his wife, and they have 3 kids: Dana, Robbie, and cute little Carol Ann. Carol Ann, 5 years old. And she starts talking to spirits through the television, which is the iconic scene on the poster, like her hands on the TV with the white noise and everything like that.
They're here.
That's right. Eventually, the spirits get angry, and bad things start happening in the house. And ultimately, they hire some paranormal investigators to come to the house.
Pre-Ghostbusters.
Who are whatever those television pre-paranormal activity kind of stuff. And they have, that doesn't work entirely. So they bring a kind of a psychic, or what are they called? They're there's a name for them when they can channel to like other spirit. The clairvoyant. They bring a clairvoyant in.
Is that Tangina?
Named Tangina. But the whole time we were watching it, we kept calling her Tangina, hoping she wasn't Sunburnt Gina.
Oh, yeah.
And played by Zelda Rubinstein, who...
All 4'3" of her?
Yep, she's only 4'3", who, as far as I know, her main movies that she's been known for are the Poltergeist movies and 16 Candles.
Yeah.
They bring in the clairvoyant, who then helps them figure out what's going on in their house. Once they do that, they think they're safe, and nope, the ghost never went away, and the whole the family gets attacked by the ghosts, and they say F this, and they take off and they leave, and the house just disappears into nothingness.
Yeah.
I think this movie is old enough, and it's kind of hard not to talk about a lot of this movie without just spoiling it.
Yeah, I mean, this movie is, 38, 39 years old, something like that. I mean, it's yeah. And watching it as an adult, so I think I only saw it once as a kid.
Oh, I saw it multiple times as a kid.
I did not. I only saw it once, and that was enough, and I never had an interest in watching it again.
I think I watched it at different points in my life. Like, I watched it as a little kid, and then was like, I'm never watching this movie ever again. And then I probably watched it as a teenager, and then maybe once in the last 20 years.
What did you say when we watched it as little kids?
I have no idea.
You don't remember?
That wasn't Poltergeist. That was a different movie.
Oh, no. It was Poltergeist, I swear. It had to be Poltergeist where you said, turn that one.
I don't think it was that. I don't even remember me even saying that.
See, you were so...
I was asleep. I woke up from a dead sleep, saw the TV, said that, apparently, and then fell back to sleep.
I've always associated it with Poltergeist, so maybe... I mean, again, I was young, too.
I was asleep, so just associate it with whatever you want.
This movie, in retrospect, is... I mean, I still don't think it should have been a PG movie, and I don't even know if it would have been PG-13 if that rating would have been available. But it was not as scary to watch as an adult.
God, no.
As it was when I was a kid. But I had to kind of mentally prepare myself, which was one reason why I wanted to watch it in a group and not by myself.
Oh my gosh.
Upon rewatch.
I mean, like I said, there are real life things that Steven Spielberg has filmed, like Schindler's List or Saving Private Ryan, or that are like really intense, suspenseful, that are actually scarier than this movie.
Sure.
Just for the fact that, those are real terrible things that are going on, and this is not that way.
Yeah.
I am not one to... I've never seen a ghost, so I can't... so it's like my thought about aliens. Like, I've never seen an alien, but I can't deny the fact that it might exist.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to say ghosts don't exist, because I think that is...
it's kind of like an agnostic way of acknowledging that
right.
The spirit world.
Right. So, but at the same time, they're ghosts. I ain't afraid of no ghosts.
Yeah.
It's... what are you going to do? So
I think I was equating Carol Ann to being a more evil character, kind of like in Exorcist, what happens to that little girl. I think I imagined all these years later, without really revisiting this movie ever before this weekend watching it, that something much worse had happened to her. I forgot that she's not in most of this movie.
No,
you just hear her voice a little bit, and
right.
that's it.
So one of the pretty much the main reason why the paranormal investigators are brought in is because another stereotypical kind of like scary thing that kids would have is the monster in the closet, and it just so happens that the closet in the Carol Ann and her brother Robbie's room is like where the portal is to the other side. Mm-hmm. So,
which gives me a whole new like angle on how in so many closets is where you have access to either like a basement or an attic.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's why a lot of that stuff,
or like underneath the house, the access is through a closet.
Right. She gets sucked into the closet and then sent into this other plane or astral plane or whatever we want to call it. And they get the paranormal investigators in there to try and figure out what the hell's going on. And then they get the clairvoyant in there to figure out how they can get her out. They eventually, get this grand plan to somehow communicate with her enough to where they can get her near the opening or not. Throw a rope in there. The mom goes in to get her. She grabs her and pulls her out, and then they
covered with goo,
covered with afterbirth. And,
yeah, basically.
They think everyone's nice and saved, and then shit gets really kind of scary. So there's some scenes in this movie that totally stood out to me as a kid, which is probably why, and which is the main reason why I picked this movie. I could have very easily picked Friday the 13th or Child's Play or any of these movies that came out in the 80s that were, big horror movies that we would have seen. Mm-hmm. I could have picked any of these movies, but I picked this movie because this was like the first one. Mm-hmm. This was like the first one I remember seeing that had things in it that like burned into my brain and freaked me out. And I'd like to say that, over time I got over a lot of it, but when you're 5, 6, 7 years old, we didn't have a lot of limits on what we would watch sometimes. So if this was on, we'd watch it and then tell ourselves we're idiots for doing that.
I think we both also had pretty wild imaginations when we were kids.
Oh,
so,
yeah. I mean, seeing this kind of stuff probably enhanced that.
Yeah.
But, so there's a couple things I want to point out. First, I was never really afraid of trees, ever. So there's a very kind of strange scene where there's a creepy tree outside the kids' room that at one point comes to life, grabs the son, Robbie, out of bed, and then pulls it outside and then tries to eat him. And it's a very ridiculous looking scene.
Yeah, the effects have not aged well.
No, but in my research, I read that scene was inspired by a creepy tree that was outside of Steven Spielberg's house. So, hence, bringing some of his own childhood into it.
Okay.
But, so I was never really freaked out by trees. I was never freaked out about voices in the TV. That didn't really come out to me, but that's, a theme in this where, the two things that always kind of creeped me out. One is that in the movie, they have this new house and they're still working on the neighborhood, but, Steven, the dad, works for the developer. Mm-hmm. So he can pretty much have whatever he wants for this house. So he's putting in a swimming pool. Well, eventually, near the end of the movie, when all hell is breaking loose, the mom falls into the swimming pool and is surrounded by skeletons. And I'll get back to why there's skeletons in there, but in my research, I read that they used real skeletons.
I heard that too.
And
it was easier than using.
It was cheaper than getting plastic skeletons, which is surprising and frightening. Mm-hmm. But I thought that was interesting. But that scene kind of, not that I was afraid that skeletons were ever going to get me in a pool, but it has kind of made me freaked out of water I can't see in, like the ocean or a lake. Yeah. You never know when that hand is going to grab you and pull you under. But probably the scene that in my mind has freaked me out the most is the scene, and you see this throughout the movie, is the kids have this creepy clown doll that sits on a chair in their room for decoration. For what reason, I have no idea. But the son, Robbie, is constantly freaked out by this doll.
He's terrified of this
now,
doll.
Let me ask you a question. If you had a decoration in your room that freaked you out, why would you keep it in there?
I wouldn't.
And why wouldn't you tell your parents, I know, like, Aunt Edna gave me the doll, but it really creeps me out. Can we not leave it in my room? Can I just put it in the closet and take it out when she's here?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. But no, they leave. And, I mean, early in the movie, he even, like, takes his jacket and puts it over the doll because he doesn't want to see it while he's sleeping.
His Chewbacca jacket.
Chewbacca.
This kid's room is decked out in Star Wars stuff.
Which is awesome. Which is amazing. Which also probably made me more freaked out because I had a lot of Star Wars stuff as a kid.
Well, he was probably what, 8 or 9, maybe 9.
He was like, I think he was like 8.
Okay.
Because Carol Ann was 5, and I think she was probably like 8.
And
he
the
was probably
oldest
like 8.
sister was like 14.
Yeah.
She's not really in the movie that much because like nothing. Did anything ever even happen to her in the movie?
No. Not in the movie.
Yeah.
At the end, after they think that they've gotten rid of the ghosts are, they're by themselves in the house. The dad's not there. The older sister's not there. It's just Mom, Carol Ann, and Robbie. And the ghosts decide to get angry at them. And they possess this clown doll. And he gets pulled under the bed, and it's like strangling him. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, I thought this scene in my mind as a kid lasted half the movie. Like, it just went on and on. It was this kid getting strangled underneath his bed, right? But upon rewatch, I'm totally over that scene now because there's something really cool that kind of happens at the end of that scene. Like, you see him get attacked by the doll. You see him get pulled under the bed. But then at some point, he's he has freed himself, and he's like punching and fighting the doll, like tearing it apart. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I hate you, stupid clown. And he's like doing that. And I was like, that is like the most empowering thing to see. Like, this kid was being attacked and then, came back. And I was like, well, you know what? I never even noticed that as a kid. All I noticed as a kid was, the fact that he was getting attacked by it.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's good.
So there was that scene. I guess the other thing that is like super freaky about this, and we'll bring it up now, and because we were talking about poor planning in real estate, there's a scene where Steven's boss takes him. They're having a meeting on like a hillside that is near their neighborhood. And they're like, yeah, this is where Phase 5 is going to be. And they're walking next to a cemetery. And he's like, well, you can't build here. Isn't that, there's something wrong with that? He's like, well, it wasn't a problem by your house. And he's like, oh, so we're living where a cemetery was? And then after, all hell breaks loose, Steven comes home, and his boss who probably lives nearby is there. And he just starts yelling at him. He's like, you took out the headstones, but you didn't remove the bodies. Yeah. So they basically built this whole neighborhood on a cemetery with the bodies still there.
Yeah.
And those souls were not at rest, and they were angry, and they took it out on Steven and his family. Yeah. In hindsight, I would not show this to my son because it would freak him out, right? Yeah. So, as campy as it might seem, and especially compared to certain things that come out today, this is still a pretty freaky movie.
Yeah.
I mean,
the score really tries to lighten it up. I mean, it is a true blue Steven Spielberg light and airy score throughout. I mean, it really tries to make it a more lighthearted movie. I mean,
a lot of his, especially some of his early work, you have to remember too, like, so let's say he was working on E.T. at the same time. He's in kind of the same mind frame of children and stuff. So if that's all true, that, he's working on these two movies simultaneously, it's kind of hard to like really change direction like that sometimes. Yeah. So maybe that it like, and he has a style, and there's a Steven Spielberg style.
Yeah.
I'm gonna and I probably just accidentally just said Stephen King again. I think I did.
It's okay.
But
Steven Spielberg.
Yeah. Spielberg has a style that is pretty much like, if you're watching one of his movies, you can really tell it's his movie. Mm-hmm. Which, gets some people into a camp of, I like Steven Spielberg or I absolutely hate Steven Spielberg.
Yeah, it can be divisive.
It's divisive. This movie definitely has that. And as much as we want to believe that Tobe Hooper was directing a lot of this, I'm sure he did do some of it. I'm not saying he didn't do any of it, because there's definitely certain things that, there's shots, there's stuff. I mean, Steven Spielberg doesn't stand behind the camera on every shot that he does. There's different crews that probably do little things here and there. Mm-hmm. So you're right. Like, the lightheartedness that comes with the music and everything like that definitely brings kind of more of like a childlike feel to it. Which is why I think they could get away with it being PG. If they were to have this, if this movie had the soundtrack to like Halloween or Nightmare on Elm Street
or Jaws
or something like that, well, even Jaws though has some more lighthearted kind of vibes, when they're on the boat together.
But yeah, if it had Nightmare on Elm Street soundtrack,
this movie would be scary.
Yeah.
So there's that. I have seen so this movie has 2 sequels and a remake. I've seen the 2 sequels. The first sequel, Poltergeist 2, The Revenge, I think is what it's called, or something like that. There are some scenes in that are scarier than the first movie. One of the things that makes the second one kind of really scary is, in the first movie, one of the things that is keeping the souls not at rest on the other side is like this demon beast. They call it like a beast in the movie.
Oh, yeah, I was joking that it was the dog from Sandlot.
Yeah, we kept joking about that. You kind of see this character a couple times, this beast character. There's when Steven's trying to like pull them out with the rope.
Yeah.
The giant head comes out of the closet, and you kind of see it. Well, in the second movie, that beast has crossed over as a character named Kane, and looks like this like creepy Undertaker kind of old man.
Oh boy.
And then that character then reappears in the third one, where now Carol Ann is living with like an aunt and an uncle in like a skyscraper like hotel apartment building in like New York, and the beast is still after her, and everything's going on while in a giant building, and it's ridiculous. And some scenes are kind of freaky in that, and like the budget's a little higher and everything, but they're not as good as the first one in some ways.
Yeah.
And I never saw the remake. They remade this movie with Sam Rockwell, a great actor, who then did the remake. I never saw that.
Yeah.
But there's some interesting...
So he played Craig T. Nelson's character?
I believe so. But there's some interesting things about this movie that, we talked about whether Tobe Hooper actually directed it or not, but there's some like really serious things that happened to some of the actors. First of all, from the second movie, the actor who played Kane, the Beast, and actually died of cancer like right as the movie ended. So He looks terrible in this movie, which I think adds to how freaky he looks.
Sure.
The other thing that happened is during the third movie, the actress who played Carol Ann got sick and passed away. And it's like, what the hell? She at least she made it to the third movie, but
was she even 12?
By then, I don't even think she was 12.
Wow.
And then, but I think one of the things I think is probably the worst, I mean, a little girl dying, is obviously terrible, is the actress who plays the older sister in the first movie had an abusive boyfriend who was beating her, like, as filming was going on, and he strangled her to death after the movie came out.
After the first one came out?
After the first one came out.
Oh my God.
So there's this idea, like, there's some curse on these movies. So why would you make a remake?
Yeah, it's like you're inviting
this terribleness. And so I think like,
or even have sequels, just let it be.
Yeah. So I think that those kinds of things, whether they are like urban legend or whatever, or actual fact, build up a story.
Sure.
So I think like, while there's a fear, like there's something scary going on with the movie itself, knowing like post this movie coming out, like certain things have happened to certain people have been linked to this franchise, adds to like the cult status of it.
Yeah, the circumstances around the movie.
Around
really
the movie,
scary.
And because it's a scary movie already, like it all ties together and makes that movie more scary.
Yeah.
You know, like it's almost like a chain letter. Like, don't watch it, or something might happen to you. And I'm not trying to make light of it. I'm just trying to point out, you know, that these are the kinds of things that I bring them up because those are the things that kind of tell the tale of why I find this movie interesting. Mm-hmm. So I'm not. Those are all terrible things, and but you know what? It makes. If you tell those things to people who just watch this movie, they'll be like, wow, they'll get more hyped to watch it.
Sure.
You know?
They won't think it's just goofy.
Yeah. So let's go on and let's talk about our favorite characters and our favorite scenes from this movie. And
you already mentioned my favorite scene.
Oh, which one is that?
The swimming pool with the skeletons.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool scene. And
just the scene, like the shot of the mom screaming and like the skeletons either like right in front of her or right behind her. She's still around. I mean, I just think that shot's really, really awesome. And I have issues with the parents. I think the parents are very. I can't believe that, knowing that the kids are either upset or have dealt with something like this. I can't believe how careless the parents are in like checking on the kids. Like the fact that the kids had to scream as much as they did before the mom like gets out of the tub or goes and checks on. I mean, just the parents are kind of frustrating to me.
Let's talk about the parents.
And Tangina is my favorite character.
Well, is she?
Yeah, she's the best.
I thought Tangina was great. And it's
Tangina.
It's Tangina. Like, it's not Regina, it's Regina. And
One-Eyed Willie.
Vagina. Let's talk about the parents. The parents, the way that they tell the story is kind of interesting. And as a parent, I'm like, what the fuck is going on in some of these scenes? Like the first time you see the parents alone, there's like the mom they're like actively rolling joints.
Yeah, they ended up
getting
spilling
high.
weed
and
all over the bed.
And I'm not saying that that's bad.
Oh no, it's just funny.
But it's fun. Like you don't see that a lot in movies where it's just like a regular family.
Yeah.
And so I kind of find that like fascinating and really cool.
Yeah, I mean it's it's early 80s, so it's like coming out of the 70s and
But at the same respect, I don't want them. I'm hoping that they didn't put that in the movie to make a statement like, "Oh, look at these pothead parents, they're neglectful."
I don't think that's it at all.
I mean, no. I don't want people to watch it with that in mind.
I don't think so. You know what? You know who these parents are? These parents were like 2 or 3 classes ahead of the kids from Dazed and Confused. I mean, they're not a whole lot older than what those kids would have been. I mean,
no.
I mean, because I think, so if this is set in 82, I think at one point they say the mom was like 35.
She's
36.
32.
She's 32. So she's 32. So she had her oldest like
at 16.
16 or 17 or something. So they're really, really young parents.
Yeah, and successful. I mean,
he's a land developer.
Yeah. So
I did not remember what the parents were like. Again, I didn't. All I knew about this movie from being a kid was it was scary. There was a TV and there were monsters in the TV that sucked the girl in. Like I didn't even remember the clown. I didn't remember.
Did you remember that she? Did you think that she?
And I remembered the pool with the skeletons.
Did you remember? Did you think that she got sucked through the TV? Or
I
did
think
you
so.
remember
Yeah.
her getting sucked through the closet?
No, I didn't remember the closet at all. Like everything. Yeah. So that scared me. But there was a detail we haven't even brought up, and it's how the movie opens. It opens with the national anthem playing, because apparently back in the 80s, and probably even before the 80s, when television didn't run 24 hours and it had like a sign-off time.
Before they put infomercials.
Yeah, before there were infomercials, or before there was like cable TV, they would play the national anthem and do these long shots of the Capitol and the flag waving, and then it would cut to just the snow. I had forgotten all of that too. So just to have a movie open with that seemed really weird, but I mean, it makes sense thinking about it now.
I wonder if...
Because it happens in Nightmare on Elm Street too.
Well, I'm wondering also, like, if Spielberg is using that as like a metaphor. Like...
America's going to hell.
Like, no, like the maybe not America's going to hell, but like, you know, kind of a... If America stops, then the bad things will come. Almost like a like Cold War, like anti-communism kind of thing. You know, maybe it's that kind of metaphor.
Or is this just a movie about ghosts in your TV?
Could
Or
be.
in your closet, or don't overdevelop cities because you've run out of space and decide to start building houses on cemeteries.
I mean, I'll tell you, like, as a kid, you know, you don't really see white noise anymore. It's like a lot of TVs, or at least I haven't seen it in a long time. I don't think a lot of you can't really see the white noise, but I remember, like, as a kid, like, you would always see white noise, like when a channel went out or your TV wasn't working.
Yeah.
And like, you'd try and like stare at it and like see pictures, and it was like those 3D eye puzzles where you're like, what's going on?
Blur your eyes.
What's going on?
It's a sailboat.
There's people in the TV. But
So what was your favorite scene?
You know what? As a kid, I had no favorite scenes because I was like, F this movie. Mm-hmm. But watching it this time, you know, the tree scene was cheesy. The scene where the mom, like, I guess the scene, like, when the mom discovers what's going on, like, she kind of
in the kitchen, like, she's moving the stuff around, and
well, they're having their breakfast, and all the kids leave, and when she comes back into the kitchen, all the chairs are moved away from the table, and she just assumes the kids don't push in their chairs.
Lazy brats.
So she pushes them all in, and then it's all done, and if you look online, they talk about this. It's all done in one shot. So you see her come in, fix the chairs, it pans over, the camera pans with her, so she walks to the sink, so you can't see the table anymore. And then when she walks back, all the chairs are stacked in like a pyramid pattern on top of the table.
Yeah.
And that's like one of those like very classic, like, oh my God, our house is haunted kind of things.
Yeah.
And then the next thing that you see is she's found like a hot spot in the kitchen, and she sits Carol Ann there, and Carol Ann then slides across the floor, and she's kind of like giddy and excited when that happens, because at that point it's like
kind of cool.
At that point it's like, ooh, Casper lives in our house.
Yeah.
But I found that scene pretty neat on the rewatch, and
I liked that scene too.
Yeah, I think though that if I'm kind of like overcoming like any fears or ingrained like danger that this movie put into my head as a kid, I really like that whole end, like the whole end sequence where she's being tossed through the room, and the kids are all being attacked, and then eventually they escape the house, and the house gets crumbled in. I think just that whole climax is pretty good for me.
That's cool.
Tangina.
You know, I didn't even hear her name. Like, I didn't even hear her get announced. I probably was dozing off a tiny bit while watching this the other night.
Shame.
I know. It was only when the credits rolled and we saw who the hell was playing Tangina. I mean, that was pretty funny. Yeah, I mean, again, I would not recommend this movie to smaller children that have overactive imaginations. I don't think anyone should really watch it probably till they're teenagers.
Nah. I think if you're watching it, like, if you know people know their kids. Like if at some point River is like, I really watch this movie and I think he's brave enough to watch it, then I would have him watch it. Yeah. It depends on the kid.
Well, you'd have to explain, back in the day, TV stopped at some point and the screen would go
Why
gray.
is the TV square and not wide and not like, why would you have a square TV and not, a flat screen TV?
Yeah. Why are there only 3 channels that they're choosing from?
Yeah. So that's my take on Poltergeist. Again,
thanks for making me watch it.
It's a fun movie. I think that
I'm glad I got to overcome my fear of watching this movie. And
well, it was fun watching with you. I don't think I was able to freak you out too much. You were so tired. But no, I thought it was good, fun movie to revisit. But now we're going to switch gears and revisit another movie that Nancy really got me into. Mm-hmm. You got me into this movie. This isn't a movie that I probably would have watched on my own. And I think, by the time I watched the first movie, I think I had already seen parts of I think the third movie was already out.
Yeah, we so when I was in elementary school, there were some girls that used to tease me about this movie before I'd ever seen it, because the main character's name is Nancy. She has brown hair, and I don't want to say I was bullied into watching it, but there was a lot of peer pressure that I had to experience this movie at some point.
I'm pretty sure you were bullied into watching it.
I think so. And it would come on around Halloween. Like, they would play it around this time of year on, I swear it must have been on like Channel 44 or something. Kind of like the CW, what's now the CW. And I finally just kind of bit the bullet and watched it, and it had Johnny Depp, which I don't know if I'd already started watching 21 Jump Street or not, but I loved Johnny Depp when I was a kid. He was like one of my early movie star crushes. So I was like, oh, okay, Johnny Depp, definitely a selling point for this movie. But yeah, this movie super scared me. I think the idea that this movie takes place in your dreams, and the fact that our brains, the brain is such a mystery still. Like, there's still so much that people don't understand about how our brains work and what dreams are and why we dream. Like, there's so many mechanics about this dream world that are so mysterious, that the fact that a movie takes place in this world made it seem so much more real or possible. Like, just the idea that you could die in your sleep if you get murdered in your sleep. It just...
So it seemed more real?
Oh, see, Matt's messing with me. But, so, I mean, the premise of this movie, for anyone who hasn't seen it, this is a group of teenagers, this group of friends. They're all having a common nightmare about the same guy. They're all having these nightmares about Freddy Krueger, and they see him the same way. He's a horribly burnt guy in a dirty red and green sweater, and he has the same weapon in all of these kids' dreams. It's this glove he made with knives on them. And the reoccurring sound you hear throughout the movie is him scratching his knives all along metal, like pipes, and
it's like nails on a chalkboard.
Yeah, but worse. It's worse. Wes Craven directed this, came out in 1984. The other actors in it, Heather Langenkamp.
She plays Nancy.
She plays Nancy. Amanda Weiss, who plays Beth in
Better Off Dead. Guess what? Dead. She's her friend Tina, who is the first person that we really see experiencing the nightmares. These nightmares are pretty intense. These kids are all being stalked. They're all running away from this guy who has found them in their dreams, and he's chasing them in all of these dreams. And Tina ends up being the first victim, and she's trying to explain
to Nancy, oh, hey, I'm having these really crazy dreams. I'm really scared and whatnot. So she has she has Nancy and Glenn come over for a sleepover because her mom is, this single lady going out with, going to Vegas for the weekend and leaving her teenage daughter home alone. And, which is always an interesting setup.
That's a very 80s kind of slasher movie.
Oh,
setup.
yeah.
Where are you going? The parents are out of town. Will you stay over my house? Sure.
Exactly. Well, and of course, her boyfriend, who she apparently has a very toxic relationship with, they fight all the time. He, of course, crashes the party, and they end up having a ton of sex and loud moany sex.
Loud moany sex.
Which, they show Johnny Depp just like, what am I doing here? And
apparently, that actually happened to Wes Craven. Like, he put that when he wrote it, he put that in the movie just because that actually happened, and he was the guy on the couch, not the guy having the sex, unfortunately.
Oh, man.
Unfortunately for him.
Yeah. But yeah, Tina, who again has been really struggling with these nightmares about Freddy Krueger coming to get her, he finally does it, and in a really great scene. I mean, I don't know necessarily how we would rate the effects in this movie per se. I mean,
I think some of them are better than other movies.
Yeah, I mean, it's all practical effects, really, right?
Oh, there's no CGI in this.
Yeah.
It's all,
I mean, the scene where, they lift up her shirt and then you see the 4 cuts across her abdomen.
Yeah.
That's pretty goddamn intense. And then she ends up being hoisted along the ceiling and flying around and spinning everywhere and blood gushing out everywhere. And it's so hard to not think, like, holy shit. Like, what if you ever were to have a nightmare this bad? Like, how could it not? I don't know. It really messes with a 10-year-old watching this movie. And
definitely, I think one thing I'd say is this is definitely a movie for like teenagers and kids. This is not a movie that is made to scare adults.
No, and just right off the bat, criticism, because I haven't watched this movie in probably 20 years. I don't think I've seen it since I was like late teenager, early 20s.
Yeah.
I haven't really had a desire, and unlike Poltergeist, where I only watched that movie once, I saw this movie a number of times.
Oh yeah.
I could quote, as I was watching it the other night, I knew what was about to be said, like I was like, oh, okay, this line's coming up. I just kind of like got right back into that mode. And I only saw the second one once. I don't think I saw that more than once or twice. Because
it's pretty terrible.
It's pretty horrible. But I've seen Dream Warriors, the third one, multiple times. It's probably my favorite one. Oh, I like the first one a lot. But Dream Warriors with Oscar winner, Patricia Arquette, amazing. And the fourth one I like a lot. That has
Dramarama
and Sinead O'Connor. It has
a great soundtrack is what you're trying to say.
Yeah, so good. I mean... But a lot of people, tons of people die in all these movies, so it's hard to get super attached because it's like by the sequel, of course they're going to get killed.
Well, one thing, and when we were doing the rewatch, that I was reminded, like, there are these like quote unquote slasher movies, and I say that because some of them are better than others. Mm-hmm. But like Friday the 13th, that whole series, like when you're watching the first movie, you're like, oh my god, what's going on? There's someone's murdering these people. By the second and third and on, you're basically rooting for the villain. You're rooting for the bad guy. You're like, oh man, I want to see these people get whacked. I want to see them get stabbed in some creative way because it's done in a campy way, as opposed to like it's not very realistic. So like in this movie. In the first Nightmare on Elm Street, I was still kind of on the fence of like Freddy Krueger's an asshole. I don't want him to win this. But when I'm watching like the fourth and the fifth one, and even the sixth one, I'm like, just let these people die. Like, go ahead, kill them. It's fun. Well, and that's part of the entertainment.
Yeah,
of
because the character you know the best by then is Freddy Krueger. Because he's been around the whole time.
I mean. There's also kind of an interesting kind of thing that happens with a lot of like I would say like the top slasher movie characters in my book are Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees, and Michael Myers. And there's it's like, oh, at the end of it, do they die? Sure they do. Wait a minute, we made a bunch of money. How do we make a sequel? Oh, they're immortal. So in some ways, Freddy Krueger is almost the most believable, because if he's in your dreams, he's never really he's never really dead. You know, he just has to find a new group of people to torture to make a movie.
Well, think about it this way too. It's like, okay, think about like a graduating class. So Nancy and Glenn and Tina and Rod, like they're the seniors. Well, the story of, you know, the 3 kids getting killed, but Nancy being the lone survivor, it becomes almost like a folklore that then gets passed down to like the younger kids.
Right.
And then it's like those younger kids can hear all these stories about who is this Freddy Krueger guy, and you can just describe this badly burned guy in this red and green sweater with the hat, with the knives, and then just the fact that they're able to imagine it, it could almost be like this invitation to bring him into their dreams.
Yeah, but they all kind of start out with like, oh, we're having these terrible nightmares and we're afraid to go to sleep. You know, so obviously there's something still there, you know. And I think in the third one, Patricia Arquette's character just keeps on having dreams of the house, you know, the house on Elm Street.
Yeah.
One thing I'd like to note is they never even mention Elm Street.
Yeah.
You know, in the first movie. So there's no like real connection to the fact that it's happening in this house or anything like that. It's all just based on the fact that all these kids, like, you know, Nancy lives across the street from Glenn. We have no idea where Tina lives. We'll just assume she lives, you know, on the corner down the street.
Yeah.
And Rod, he might not even live on Elm Street. He probably, you know, lives on Oak Street.
Yeah.
You know, so there's a lot of vagueness that goes on with that.
And this is another movie, kind of like with Die Hard, where there's like only 3 smart heroes, and everyone else who's supposed to be like a good guy is an idiot. The kids cannot get their parents to goddamn listen to them. The kids are trying to explain what is happening to them, what they think is happening to the people who've been hurt and killed. And all these goddamn grown-ups are just, you know, plugging their ears. They don't want to listen. They've got a different idea. No, we already killed this guy.
Well, wait a minute. Yeah, we killed this guy already. He's dead. How can he come back? We can't believe this completely supernatural thing that is happening. Well, in reality, why would you? But, you know,
except she's coming back. So this is the thing. So Nancy learns, okay, if I'm getting injured in my dreams and I wake up and I can show physical evidence of these injuries, that's gotta like start convincing people, right?
Yeah.
Like she like after Tina gets killed, and okay, not only was it satisfying to watch Beth from Better Off Dead get murdered, but then for her to keep reappearing and haunting Nancy like in her bloody body bag.
Those scenes are so cool.
They're the best. I mean, those
scenes are so great.
Nancy.
With like the caterpillar coming out of her mouth and just all of that stuff. Oh. I remember like none of that I forgot. Like I remembered all of that.
Yeah.
And I was like watching this like this is so cool.
Yeah.
And as cheesy as some of the effects are, and some of the like I think that this movie actually has like all the nightmare scenes are actually kind of like what real nightmares are like for me, maybe, where it's like you're in your house or you're being chased and you're in a neighborhood that you're familiar with. Yeah. Whereas like from the third movie on, they become like ridiculousness, you know, creative ridiculousness that, you know, is not uncommon.
The third one takes place in a mental institution,
which is not uncommon with dreams, but it's taking the surreal. I'd say it's surreal. They're taking the surrealism of dreams, which is great, and going like step further. I think it's in the fourth one. Another actress who was in Just the 10 of Us, other than that's not Heather Langenkamp. She is in the fourth one, and she's like really into fitness. And there's a scene early on in the movie before she's dreaming where she sees a cockroach and gets freaked out by it. So in the scene so she falls asleep while working out, I guess, and she's working out and Freddy is like starts pushing the dumbbell down on her when she's on the weight bench, and her arms start getting burnt, and her skin breaks off, and she starts turning into a cockroach. And then he's chasing her, and she's got these cockroach arms and a human body, and then all of a sudden she falls, and her face hits something really sticky, and as she rises up, her face peels off, and she's just a giant cockroach, and it turns out he was chasing her into a giant cockroach trap.
Yeah.
Do you remember this?
Yeah.
So weird. Yeah. And it's like burned in my brain because it was so kind of creepy when I saw it at that age.
Do you remember the boyfriend being turned into a piece of pepperoni or sausage? And him,
vaguely.
And Freddy taking his knives and stabbing him in the head. This was after he was killed.
Something. Oh, yeah. Something like that. And then eating it. Yeah. It was all of her friends, I thought. All of her friends were little sausages on a pizza. I mean, but
so
my point is...
Much more bizarre, weird shit.
Weird shit.
Because, like, in the first one, okay, so we'll just go through the deaths real quick. Tina gets chased. He catches her. He slashes her. Like... That's Tina, pretty basic. And Rod has been thrown into jail for murdering Tina, and he gets killed by
strangulation.
They simulate like they set it up that he hung himself.
Yeah.
And then Glenn, this is maybe the worst, like the most bizarre, but I actually don't mind this one.
This is the most bizarre. This is the most bizarre.
You got a stretcher? Stretcher, you're gonna need a mop. Matt and I used to laugh over that all the time. I actually prefer it because I didn't want to see Johnny Depp all cut up and bloody and gross. So it's like just turning him into tomato soup was fine.
He gets sucked into his bed.
That's fine. Sucked into his bed when the station had its final. When the station ended,
and then went to white noise.
Went to the national anthem and the white noise that happened in this movie too. So I was like, wait a second, I just saw this the day before. Him turning into tomato soup was fine, because I didn't want to see him all cut up and gross.
Yeah, basically,
I didn't want caterpillars coming out of his mouth.
See him get pulled. You see Freddy's arm come through his bed, pull him into a hole into his bed, and then it cuts away. They're like, hey, what's going on with him? I don't know, he's fine. It cuts back to his room, and then all of a sudden, like shooting vomit up to the ceiling is him grinding it in through a juicer.
It's almost like he had been put through a blender or something, and juicer. There you go. And like it was, but so those were the
Johnny juice.
Oh, gross. So
you want a free shot?
Oh my god.
Well, a boost? No, it's a boost. You want a free boost?
Protein boost.
You know what? We'll talk about this later. But you know what everyone needed was an acting boost.
Dude, okay, yeah. So before we get into that, let me also just point out this movie has a lot more religious overtones than I'd remembered.
Really?
Well, really, as in because I didn't remember them, or because
really because I don't see it.
Are you kidding me?
Just the fact that there was crosses.
Well. That's what I'm saying, though. It's like she was clean. Tina was clean to having the crucifix, and Nancy did too when she stayed over at Tina's house. Like, and the nursery rhyme that they say all the time includes some religious stuff. I mean, I'm not saying that this is a religious movie in the same way that
Dracula, Exorcist.
Yeah, I'm not comparing it that way, but I'm just saying there is an element. It's not like she goes to church and prays or anything. I'm just saying that there's little things.
Yeah.
Also in this movie are Nancy's parents. Her dad's a cop. They're divorced. Her mom is a complete drunk, and oftentimes looks like she's a flight stewardess. Did you notice that? Looks like she was a flight attendant in her little outfits and stuff.
I was just so blown away by how overly tan she looks. Dad, you know what though? I like when they show scenes with the dad too. Like her dad seemed overly tan too. It's like they were caking Cheeto sauce on their face.
I remember now that the mom, only kind of in the eyes, always reminded me a little of like Susan Sarandon. Matt and I get in arguments about this all the time. But no, there's just something about like in the eyes, just kind of in her eyes, and maybe just like something about her voice, because she's like a little deeper voice.
If Susan Sarandon, if you took away all of her acting talent, maybe you'd have her.
Yeah, because let's just nip this one. Let's dive in. The acting is horrible in this movie.
The acting is really bad. Johnny Depp probably had the longest career out of anyone in this movie in his acting in this. It was the first thing he was ever in.
Oh, was it?
And he was cast because he was dreamy.
Well, yeah, he is dreamy.
That Wes Craven's daughter says she was dreamy.
He could wear a nice crop top. Wasn't he wearing a crop top at least in one or two scenes?
When he died, he was wearing a cutoff shirt. He had a cutoff football shirt on, and he was a football player, I believe, because he had also like a Letterman jacket with his name on it. But yeah, the acting in this
is horrible.
Not good.
But which kind of is perfect for movies like this.
Why would you if you're putting all of your budget into the villain and like the creative ways that they're dying, why would you spend time on getting an actor who is going to only be on screen for 5 minutes because they're going to die?
Yeah. Although, you know what? Tina is pretty good.
I would say that if I was rating the acting talent of the people in this movie,
Freddy's number one.
I'll say Robert Englund. You know what? He deserves a gold star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and he has to be in the horror movie Hall of Fame. As well. Yeah, because what he did with this character and the creativity that he brought to it, and the way and his performance,
his maniacal laugh.
over, I believe it's 8 films.
Oh my god!
If you count all the sequels and Freddy versus Jason and the New Nightmare movie. New Nightmare is the only one I haven't seen. Wes Craven's New Nightmare, where he tried to resurrect the whole thing. Because he has, it's, we grew up in the stereotypical of 80s movies are like the the hero Hollywood pun that you would get from like James Bond or Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, or or just even John McClane in
Yippee-ki-yay,
yeah. But what they do with Freddy Krueger is they give all those one-liners to the villain, which again kind of makes him the hero. Like you almost start thinking of him as the hero. Yeah. But yeah, he's got some great creepy one-liners, and so I would say if we're rating the acting and performance talent, we're just going to give a nod to Robert Englund. Yeah. Then it's probably Tina. Yeah. She's not in the movie very long, but she kind of pulls it off pretty well. Yeah. And then
I don't know where everyone else goes.
I think second probably might be her
dad.
Glenn's dad. the 2 minutes of screen time he has. He's pretty good.
Sorry, you're gonna have to talk to him tomorrow.
You gotta be firm with these kids. I don't want him hanging out with her anymore. Blah, blah, blah.
Oh my god, stupid parents.
And then maybe the cop who says you're not gonna need a stretcher, you're gonna need a mop. That is where we're going with the
but
acting level.
But is that the same cop who's looking at Nancy as she's screaming out the windows, "Get my dad! Get my dad!" And he's like, "Huh. Looks like something's going on over there. Maybe I should go let the lieutenant know."
Let me stand here for 10 more minutes while this woman screams at me.
Oh my god. Yeah. So yeah, acting not the greatest, but again, when you're 9 or 10 watching this for the first time, you're not watching it for the acting. No. You're absorbing the feel, the scares of it. Let's go to favorite scenes. I had one in mind, but I may change my mind.
Favorite scenes. I always really liked the whole scene when so at one point she gets this plan at the end to like booby trap the house.
The MacGyver scene.
That was
going to be that's mine.
It's very empowering. Yeah. And I always remembered like thinking like, oh man, we're getting to the cool scene where she sets all the booby traps. Yeah. And I always thought that was kind of cool. Yeah. And then probably my second favorite scene is when she falls asleep in school and you see Tina, and then you see like the body bag is getting dragged everywhere, and then it ends with her running into the hall monitor with the Freddy sweater on, and it's
Don't
Freddy.
forget your hall pass.
Yeah, exactly. That would be my second. And my favorite character in the movie, I'm just gonna go with Freddy Krueger.
Yeah.
I mean, his dialogue in this movie is far less than
he's
what
very
it
limited.
becomes eventually in the franchise. But he's pretty creepy in this movie.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that's interesting is in my research I had read that in this movie he is a child murderer. And I had forgotten that in the opening credits you see him making his knives.
Yeah.
And I had forgotten all about that.
Yeah.
His glove, which I thought was pretty cool. But in my research, I found originally he was going to be a child molester that had then killed them. Which, again, I haven't seen the remake that they did of this in 2010 with Jackie Earle Haley, who's a great actor.
Who plays a child molester in another movie?
Oh, what movie is that?
It's with Kate Winslet. Oh, I'll look it up.
They bring that theme back in the remake, which I have not seen. I'm not big into some of these remakes.
Yeah.
I do. There's another movie we're going to talk about that also got remade, and I might try and watch that one before we talk about that movie. But anyway, I just think that Freddy Krueger is there's definitely kind of, like I said, he belongs in the horror movie Hall of Fame. Really, in a lot of ways, if you're looking at different generations of genres and everything like that, him, like I said, Jason, Michael Myers are probably the top three of the 80s when it comes to horror movies. There's a lot of B movie, horror movie kind of characters, but and if you were to kind of rank those three as a character, I'm putting him at the top because he actually has dialogue.
I was just going to say, I haven't really seen Friday the 13th or Halloween, and I don't ever remember anyone saying that they talk.
They don't.
Okay, so yeah, it makes Freddy Krueger so much more interesting.
But if you were to watch of those three, Jason is the least scary, even though he's probably the most baddest guy because he never dies. You could stab him a million times and he still wakes up. But Michael Myers is a similar way, and so is Freddy in the sense that he's always in your dreams. But I think from a creative standpoint, Freddy Krueger's probably freaky only because because of the surrealness of him and the fact that he's in your dreams. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
When you eventually ever see Halloween, which I highly recommend, you might change your tone because Michael Myers is pretty freaky.
Yeah. So. Little Children was the name of the movie that.
Oh wow!
Jackie Earle.
It even has a somewhat creepy title. Oh.
So yeah, my favorite scene I think was the booby trap scene, but you know what? I also really like the scene when Tina gets killed. I think it's
done really well.
The suspense and the reveal of what he can do. If you've never seen any of these movies before and you don't know what the outcome is going to be, I mean, it is really amazing to see how he stalks her in the dreams, he chases her, and then he finally gets a hold of her and slashes her stomach open.
Yeah, that scene's pretty cool. And it's really bloody.
Yeah.
It's really bloody. One thing that's kind of interesting. I mean, when you get to the other movies, it's don't fall asleep because if you die in your dream, you'll die in real life. Is kind of the thing they say. Well, in these movies, it's almost like they can't decide. Tina she falls asleep. She gets chased by Jason, and then all of a sudden, or Freddy. I'm sorry. She gets chased by Freddy, kind of and then we don't know if she actually wakes up or not, or if she's dreaming the whole time he's attacking her. Yeah. But they show him under the sheets, and then you see the four cuts happen, but you don't actually see so it's hard to tell. Is she dreaming that she's fighting Freddy, and it happens in real life, or is it this idea if you die in your dream, you'll just die for real. But why would it actually happen to you physically? Why wouldn't your heart just stop?
Yeah, I mean, she had the evidence before her mom left that like her nightgown got shredded. So he'd slashed her nightgown in that one scene because she woke up and the mom's like, "Guess you're gonna have to cut your fingernails." I mean, just.
Why are we trying to find logic in a movie like this?
Yeah,
but I'm just that's how my brain works.
But yeah, so Tina's death scene. It was pretty damn awesome.
That's pretty cool. And your favorite character? Freddy Krueger? Come on. It can't be Nancy. It's Nancy, isn't it?
It's not Nancy. I mean, I guess it's Freddy Krueger. I mean, again, I was so taken aback by the not great acting in this movie that it was hard to kind of think of who the favorite characters. But I mean, she really is the center of the movie.
Yeah. I mean, I understand why people would pick Nancy because she's kind of the hero. The other thing, I mean, this movie has a very...
Yeah, I'm going to say it was her.
Okay.
I mean, it becomes Freddy Krueger in later movies, but...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this movie has a very kind of open-ended, kind of surreal ending, too.
Oh, so bizarre.
It's so bizarre, like, to the where you don't even know, like, if everything you just watched really happened. Which I think is kind of interesting. Like, as a kid, I didn't really make that connection, but we've seen enough movies to where we can, like, kind of analyze it that way, and I kind of found that pretty cool. Like, having this like open-ended, like, did they win? Is he still around?
Yeah.
Did they kill him?
I mean, she thinks that she solves the mystery of the whole, I'm not going to give you energy anymore, you can't hurt me, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, just like snap of your fingers, and she wakes up, and it's like, oh, wow, it's so bright outside. Hey, oh my God, Mom, you look so great. And she's like, I feel like $1 million. And, you know, all of her friends who she already knows have been all murdered show up in the convertible that has the red and green top on it.
Yeah.
So I mean, clearly it was poised for sequels.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way you end the movie like that.
Well, the second one came out the year later. So.
So the thing that's unique about the second one is that it's a male lead, and that's the only. I think that's the only time it's a male lead for the rest of the series.
Pretty much, and which is very interesting, and the only reason why it's a male lead is because it has this it's the only time they do this in the series, but it has this very bizarre, like, Freddy is coming back to life by possessing that main character.
So weird.
It was so bizarre.
I just don't remember much of it at all. It was so strange.
I just remember, like, there was, like, a bus scene at the end, and there's a party scene where there's, like, a high school party.
There's definitely at least one intense sex scene.
Oh, well, come on. I mean, why not? It's a slasher movie. I mean, if it wasn't for slasher movies, I probably wouldn't have ingrained in my brain that all teenage girls wear only a t-shirt and their underwear to bed. I'm pretty sure. I just grew up. That's what all of them wear.
And Carol Ann's mom.
Carol Ann's mom.
That's what Carol Ann's mom wore to bed when she was fighting off the demons and then got pulled into the swimming pool full of skeletons.
There you go. I mean, that's pretty much the pajama choice of the times. One other thing that I wanted to point out that I never caught on to as a kid was Nancy and Tina are only 15. They're only supposed to be 15.
Wow. Because
when Tina dies, there's a news report on in the background, and they say, like, 15-year-old Tina, whatever her last name was. And then, so, like, again, 80s movie, who knows what age they are? They all must be, like, 25 years old, right?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking Heather Langenkamp is, you know, older physically, but she's only playing 15-year-old. Well, there's a line in the movie where after she decides to just not sleep. She's gone on like 10 days without sleeping. She's, you know, drinking coffee constantly.
So goddamn insane.
Right. And she even has her mom makes her go to a sleep clinic. She falls asleep, has a nightmare. The doctor, played by Charles Fleischer, who is famous for making Roger Rabbit's voice and having an amazing scene in Zodiac.
Oh, yes.
she wakes up from that dream and has gray hair, you know, the stress gray hair.
Yeah.
Which also happens in Poltergeist, which is amazing. She makes this line where she's talking to Glenn and she's just like, "Oh my God, I look 20 years old." Which is funny because not just because it's like, ha ha ha, you look 20 years old, like that's so old, but that's how old she was in real life. Heather Langenkamp was 20 years old. so that's just so funny.
Yeah.
Also want to mention, shout out to Sam Raimi and Evil Dead, which is a really fun kind of horror movie that is showing on the TV when she's trying to stay up late one night. That's the movie that's on.
Oh, how wild.
And Wes Craven and Sam Raimi are friends. So in
cross promotion
in Evil Dead 2, which is pretty much Evil Dead 1 just done again with a different tone, Freddy's glove appears in a shed in that movie. So
there you go.
You know, fun facts to enjoy. Evil Dead is a pretty fun movie. So
zombies,
demons.
Oh, never seen it.
The Necronomicon. I should make you watch that movie, but I think we might have to save that for next year, or just another time we just feel like talking about scary movies.
All right.
I only have one more thing I want to add. I know that Johnny Depp was dreamy, and that you really love Johnny Depp. At least Johnny Depp up until
Sleepy Hollow.
Up until Sleepy Hollow, and then after that, kind of teeters off.
Yeah, he just got too weird with too much Tim Burton.
Was he too goofy with as Jack Sparrow? Or did you not like him with the goatee?
No, it's not that. I just never really got into. I just never really got into those movies.
Well, two other actors I'd like to mention that were up for the role of Glenn. Charlie Sheen.
Not a shock, that seems right.
And, I mean, if you're thinking age-wise, Charlie Sheen...
Let me see if I can guess the other one. Would it be C. Thomas Howell?
No.
Anyone else from The Outsiders?
No.
Rob Lowe. Okay, no.
John Cusack.
Are you goddamn kidding me?
I saw it online. Other actors up for this role. Charlie Sheen, a couple other people who I don't remember off the top of my head. John Cusack.
Nice.
So it all comes full circle, people, on the podcast. So maybe we could ask him how disappointed he was if we ever get to talk to him. We'll try our best. I think this was a lot of fun talking about a couple scary movies. We are going to do this all through October. We're hoping to squeeze in at least 2 more episodes where we're going to talk about some scary movies. And you know where to find us. You know, we're online.
We're on Instagram.
We're on social media. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. We're on the Twitter. You can find our episodes on YouTube. We're now live on Spotify. So if you like to listen to podcasts on Spotify, you can now find us Fighting Over the VCR on Spotify and listen to us. My name's Matthew.
My name's Nancy.
This has been Fighting Over the VCR. Tangina. Hello, it is time for the podcast.
Hello, let's get the show started.
Oh, yeah.